Today we are going to discuss in detail the renal mechanisms for excreting dilute urine, or how the kidneys excrete dilute urine. Sometimes the kidneys need to excrete dilute urine so that the concentration of plasma remains the same. In the start of this lecture, we discussed that the kidneys are trying to maintain a constant concentration of the extracellular fluid so that all the cells of the human body are in the constant extracellular fluid concentration, and no adverse event should occur in case any change in concentration of extracellular fluid occurs. In this example, we consider that if a human being, if a person consumes 1 liter of water, how it will affect the concentration of plasma, how it will affect the concentration of urine, and how the kidneys will get rid of then this excess water. Now, in this, with the help of this graph and this diagram, we are going to demonstrate this thing. Now, this graph is showing the osmolarity of plasma and osmolarity of urine. Here in this graph, we are looking at the urine flow rate per ml per minute. And finally, in this graph, we are looking at the urinary solute excretion, the amount of solute that are being excreted in urine. So here we see at this very point, a person consumes 1 liter of water. As soon as the person consumes 1 liter of water, with the passage of a little passage, with a passage of around 40-45 minutes, the osmolarity of urine starts dropping here. It starts dropping here, and it may drop around 6 times. It may drop around 6 times, from 600 to around 50 milliosmol per liter. Similarly, the amount of urine, or the urine flow rate, it also starts increasing after some time. The person drank around 1 liter water here, and after some time, the kidneys started excreting this excess water. The urine flow rate has increased, then it stabilizes and then comes down to normal. Similarly, the osmolarity of urine, it initially comes down. The person starts excreting dilute urine because the concentration drops, and then there is a plateau, and finally the concentration of the urine increases again, make only if the person is not drinking more water. But there are two important things. If we look at the concentration of plasma throughout this event, the concentration of plasma remains the same. Similarly, if we look at the urinary solute excretion rate, or the amount of solute that are excreted in urine over time, it also remains the same. So with even a person has drunk around 1 liter of water, it has caused the urine osmolarity to decrease, and it has caused the urine volume to increase, but there is no difference in the concentration of plasma. And that is the purpose of this chapter, and that's how the kidneys are trying to maintain a constant environment. So all the cells of the body are living in constant environment, and there is no change. And that is the beauty that the kidney is doing it so beautifully, this thing. Now finally, look at the urine solute excretion. The amount of solute that are being excreted also remains the same. No excess sodium, potassium, or other solute are being excreted in urine, and it remains the same over this time. There is no change. How the kidney has done this, we will understand this thing when we study the nephron in detail, and how dilution occurs in nephron. So when initially the plasma is filtered in the glomerular filtration rate, the concentration of the plasma in the concentration of the filtrate is around 300, which is almost equal to the concentration of the extracellular fluid. Now at this proximal tubule, equal amount of sodium and water is being reabsorbed. So there is literally no change in the proximal tubule. There is no change in the proximal tubule, no change in the concentration of filtrate here. Now, what happens when the filtrate enters the descending loop of Henle? In the descending loop of Henle, water is being reabsorbed. But sodium is not being reabsorbed. So the concentration of this filtrate increases from 300 to 600, because the concentration of extracellular fluid surrounding this distal tubule is also 600. It helps in the reabsorption of water. So here it has increased to 400, and then finally it also increases to 600. It may or may not increase to 600 exactly, but this descending loop helps in increasing the concentration of filtrate. It helps in the increasing the concentration of filtrate. Then what happens, that this filtrate start moving in the ascending limb of loop of Henle. In the ascending limb of loop of Henle, especially the thick ascending limb, there is a thin thin limb and the thick limb. In the thick limb especially, there is reabsorption of sodium. There is reabsorption of sodium here and here, but there is no reabsorption of water. Now compare it with the descending limb. In the descending loop, water was being reabsorbed, so this filtrate was being concentrated. In the ascending limb, sodium and other solutes are being reabsorbed, but water is not being reabsorbed. So what happens now is that this helps in bringing down the concentration of the the filtrate again. The filtrate initially had the concentration of 300, which increased to around 400 or 600 depending upon the conditions. Then finally, when it started moving up, solute were reabsorbed, but water was not being reabsorbed in the thin and thick ascending limbs of loop of Henle. So the concentration of the filtrate dropped to 100. Now it is important to mention that this limb, this distal tubule and the ascending limb is not the reabsorption of water is not done even in the presence of antidiuretic hormone. But when this fluid filtrate moves into cortical collecting ducts and medullary collecting ducts, then again, what happens is that here, if antidiuretic hormone is not present, water will not be reabsorbed. Water will not be reabsorbed, and due to no reabsorption of water, the filtrate concentration will come down to 100, then 70, and it may finally come down to 50. So here we discussed that the concentration, the osmolarity of urine, it may decrease from 600 to around 50, and that's how when a person drinks a lot of water, the antidiuretic hormone secretion is stopped. The purpose of the antidiuretic hormone is to reabsorb water, especially in the cortical collecting duct and medullary collecting duct. If there is no secretion of antidiuretic hormone, the ADH, then there is no reabsorption of water, and the filtrate keeps on diluting. It keeps on diluting, and the urine concentration finally this filtrate, which is moving out in the form of urine, and which is exactly forming the urine, it results in the formation of a lot of dilute urine. And that's the topic of our this lecture, that the renal mechanism for excreting dilute urine. That's how the kidneys are excreting dilute urine. To properly understand this lecture, you should watch it a few times, and then you will understand that with these mechanisms, the kidneys help to excrete dilute urine, and it helps in maintaining same concentration of the plasma, and it helps in keeping same concentration of solutes in the urine. But the only change occurs is in the urine flow rate and the concentration of urine. So that's all about the renal mechanism for excreting the dilute urine. Thanks a lot.